Why has it always been important to you as part of your comedy to focus on things that kind of people do as part of everyday life?
This is the comedy I enjoyed growing up. I love to watch comedians go, I do that, or man, like just relatability. And I'm a fan of that type of comedy. And I always have an inner dialogue in my head of things that I'm experiencing at the time, going, oh wow, this is crazy, or this is something I could use on stage. And I think it started in school, watching students behave and looking at this kid do that and this girl do that. For me, it was always fun to just kind of observe rather than, that's why I was never the class clown. I thought the class clown was unfunny. I thought the class clown was just like, sit down, man, nobody wants to hear this. And I just was very quiet, very observational. I felt like if you're talking, you're not learning. So I just always absorbed everything around me.
You kind of evolved early in your career from being kind of this angry guy persona to the appalled guy. Describe, if you don't mind, like the intricacies of that shift.
Yeah, nobody wants to listen to like a guy just bitch about stuff, you know, and he's angry about it, and he's not in on his own joke. So over time, again, over time, going up on stage, learning how the audience reacting to the anger, I noticed that I'd have to laugh on stage at myself, at the absurdity of kind of what I was talking about in order to let the crowd in.
And was there something that happened that made you realize that?
Just watching myself, I go, I gotta like, I'm not likable. The audience is not gonna like me if I'm gonna come up there and start yelling at them. So then over time, there's one moment on stage at the Comedy Store that I did a physical bit. It was the first physical bit I did, and it was a Ross Dress for Less bit where you been to Ross Dress for Less? Everything's on the floor. I don't know, what are they looking at stuff? And then I chucked it across the stage, and I noticed, oh wow, people really like to watch physical type of humor, which I didn't really know I had in me until I became comfortable enough to do that. The whole thing about stand-up is like, if you're ever at a wedding and you're out on the dance floor, you don't dance like you dance at home. At least, I find that for most people. Yeah. Because when you're dancing at home, you don't care. Same thing with comedy. You got to get to the point where you don't care. You got to dance like you know, you're at your house and nobody cares. So with comedy, it just takes confidence to get to that point. And for me, that was the physicality for me, was like, oh wow, I could be myself up here and nobody's gonna view it as being, oh, what's that? It definitely enhanced the comedy.
So I've heard you say before, like you're always writing material, but from what I understand, like you don't actually physically write. Explain kind of what your process entails.
So yeah, it's storytelling. It's not necessarily sitting down and writing jokes. I go to Universal Studios with my family, and I'll take you through the whole experience. It's similar to what you would do if you went home to your wife tonight and said, you know, I was at Sebastian's house today in Arlington Heights, hot in there, you know, like whatever you're telling your wife at the end of the day, I feel like this is what I'm doing. I'm just reporting what I'm doing in a funny way. It's just how I see life through this lens of humor, that I don't feel like my strength is coming up with tags or this, that, and the other thing. My strength is storytelling, delivery, timing, and acting out my bits.
And how then do you go about like refining that, even speaking to kind of inflections, nuance, you know, et cetera?
That comes with reviewing what you did each night, and then the physical stuff comes in the moment of delivering the joke. So the other night I did something and I was like, oh wow, that fits so well there. I never planned it out. It was in the moment.
And how does it happen in the moment?
it was a physical move I did in the moment that I just innately did. It just came out of me. You know, when Jordan was on a streak, this was, I think it was in the '96 finals. I forget what finals it was, where he was hitting those 3-pointers, and he just kept hitting them. He set a record, and then he turned to Magic, and he kind of went like this, like, I don't know what's going on. That's kind of how I feel sometimes when those moments happen on stage, where you never planned it, you never even thought about it prior. It just happened in the moment, and it's a little gem.
Is there an example of a story that comes to mind that just took kind of years of refining to get it to the place that you were most proud of?
There's a Chipotle bit I do. I think the joke goes, these poor Chipotle workers listen to the same day in, day out, right?
Nobody talks to the Chipotle people. There's no conversation that happens. They listen to the same 8 hours a day.
If there's no communication, you come up and it's like chicken, steak, cheese, gone. You know, that's all they're listening to. So I was doing chicken, steak, whatever, chicken, beans, cheese, whatever. I was just saying that, and then one day I acted it out it was like a pigeon. And first it started as a pigeon, and then it got really physical, and I was like across the whole stage. So that bit for me, I think, was a bit that I was working on for a while to kind of perfect. And once I did that kind of physical movement throughout, I noticed that everybody could relate to just going to any, it could be Subway, it could be any counter where you go, lettuce and a tomato and a lettuce and tomato. There's no like, and this is another thing, no one talks anymore. There's no like, hey, what's going on? I try to like, I'm not a transactional guy when I go out. I don't like to just sit there and, I went to Macy's the other day. I asked the guy, I go, it's dead in here. Did anybody ever come in here? I got like a look like, that's not in the manual. You know, like we didn't learn to talk to people during the transaction. You know, like I just, that particular thing I noticed, and I think a lot of people think that I'm getting a little laughter over here. It's nice to hear that. I'm always got an ear over here. I go, is any of the stuff that I'm saying funny in the interview playing here? Because the way I see it, who's ever watching this at home might be giggling at the same thing you're giggling at. So the radar is always on.
Do you still analyze the laughs in the way you once did? Because I read in your book you would take kind of detailed notes about kind of the moments you got laughs.
Well, there's different laughs for different things, you know.
Meaning what?
Just, you know, the way I see it when I look into the audience, I need them to be, my goal is for them to be uncontrollably laughing throughout the show. I don't want any moment, I don't even take a drink of water during this show because I feel like just drink of water is gonna lose the momentum of the show. My shoelace was untied the other night, and I didn't want to tie it. And I say, I know my shoe's untied, and I ain't gonna tie it because it takes me 17 seconds to tie the shoe, and during that time, I could lose control of the whole damn show. If I put the microphone down, that's it. That's kind of my wand. Mm-hmm. And I don't want anything to interrupt the laughter. So yeah, there are different laughs at different times, but ultimately, I like the people to lose control of their self and just, I don't want any let up of the laughter.
How are you still finding ways to improve today?
It's difficult because you want to make the jokes as good or as equal to anything someone has saw before, or then they think, it's not as funny as the last one he did, or not as funny as the one he did about Aren't You Embarrassed, or whatever it was. So you have to like live your life. You have to go out and, you know, you have to go to Universal Studios. You have to go, I went trick-or-treating with my kids. I got a whole thing now on trick-or-treating.
I liked your outfit.
Was it? Oh, yeah, I was in an orange leotard. Now, I made fun of that guy when I wasn't married and had kids. Hey, look at this idiot. Never be that guy. And here I am walking around LA in a leotard.